Okay, so you need to hire a closer or setter for your agency because you are the biggest constraint in the business. My friend, you are in stage 2 of the agency, what we call the delegation dilemma. It's usually where you and your time is the biggest constraint, and you need to get yourself out of one of the highest revenue generating activities, to be fair, that you focus your time and attention on right now, which is either setting, but more importantly and mainly closing. Now, this is going to allow you to do two things. Number one, it's going to allow you to free up your time so you can work on the business and not in it. And I can tell you there is no better feeling than having closers close for you when you just manage them, have a call a week, make sure they're operating within KPI and you're good to go. And then you can manage the sales team, the client success team, everything runs like a well-oiled machine. That's when you truly feel like the first piece of freedom in your agency, because for the longest time it feels like a fucking prison. And second off, it also allows you to scale new client acquisition, because as a result of you bringing a setter or a closer in, or both, they will have more calendar time than you. And then all it is a case of you just bringing on more setters, more closers, ramping ad spend, and getting more people. So that being said, personally for my agency, I've hired about 10 to 20 different sales reps on top of the people inside of my program License and Scale, who we've collectively hired, 20, 30, 40 additional closers for as well. I want to run you through my process for hiring them as soon as humanly possible. So where do we source the leads from? Onboarding them and ramping them into KPI in the first 14 days. So you can officially get yourself off calls, working on the business instead of in it. So let's dive in. So first thing you need to understand is where you actually get the lead flow from. So first piece of the puzzle, much like any acquisition process, you need to understand that talent acquisition is exactly like client acquisition, okay? There's only 4 pieces of the puzzle. You got to get people to raise their hand and say they're interested. You've then got to get those interested people to book, then to show, then to close. In this case, you would be doing the interviewing, which would be the show. Then from there, you convert them into a closer or a setter. So first piece of the puzzle is generating the lead flow. Now, to be clear, the biggest mistake that I see people make when they're trying to hire closers is they think it's like any other role where you can just run an ad. You can, to be clear, but I would not be posting on platforms like Indeed, Online Jobs. Number one, Indeed is great for like 9 to 5 employees, but I've personally found the best closers are either already on an offer or they're floating around in communities, school groups, Facebook groups. So for me, what I've done, if I just give you an example, is we just have this big checklist of things and levers that we can pull to get talent. So I have a VA go through this on a week-to-week basis so we can scan and find the best candidates. The first thing was we have this list of school communities that we will immediately put a post into, and a list of Facebook communities as well, okay? So what we do is we're in all of these communities. The minute that we need to find a closer, we immediately just spam all of those communities with our job post template. Now, this is where most people fuck up. They do not understand the dynamic behind creating a really attractive job post that makes people want to click on it. So the way that ours is framed is the following: hiring setters and closers, 10K a month on track earnings. Are you a savage closer looking for a high performance team where you can earn 10K a month and have uncapped growth potential? Our sales team is currently overloaded with qualified calls and we need another A player to help us close deals. We have a proven sales process, high volume of lead flow, top closer made X last month. Here's your responsibilities, here's the requirements. To apply, fill out your information here. It's that simple. Then we send them to an application form, which I'll run you through in a minute, okay? The second thing is we then reach out to placement agencies and Instagram group chats. This is gonna be blurred for obvious reasons, but over a prolonged period of time, you start to identify these placement companies, and these are the key people you wanna look for when you're hiring reps. Find the companies that have a B2C offer, but don't have the B2B back-end developed yet. So what I mean by that is there is so many companies. You think like Shelby Sap as an example, where people pay, like B2C, average day-to-day people, pay Shelby Sap to get in her community to learn how to make money with high-ticket sales. Well, Shelby, as an example, from my understanding, doesn't have a B2B backend, meaning she will get those people to pay her like, $5,000, $10,000 to learn the skill. And it's her responsibility to help them find a role. Therefore, she is desperate. Like all these closing companies that have a B2C offer with no backend are desperate to find those people a role, because they're probably not, like most of them that aren't that developed, aren't confident enough to charge a business for these closers, because they're like, they're still learning, they're not 100% there. It's really their first time in high ticket sales. I'll tell you the best thing that I found with high ticket closers is you find people that actually don't have a ton of experience. Now, great, if they have a ton of experience, incredible. But usually when you're hiring your first closer, the on-track earning is going to be, like 6, 10, maybe 12K a month, ballpark. So they're not going to make a whole lot of money. I found if you want really good A-player closers, you really want to be paying them like, 10, 20, $30,000 a month, of which might not be probable that you can afford that right now with the current volume that you've got. I mean, just do the math, right? If you are paying a closer like 10% of cash collected, are you collecting like 200, 300K a month in new cash? Probably not. And if that's the case, then we've got other ways that we can incentivize them to make them more money. But the point I'm trying to make here is we probably want to look for someone that's got minimal experience that's very moldable. Key traits that I look for when hiring closers or setters: somebody that has the will and somebody that is just willing to put their ego aside and learn. That is it. They need to be like a sponge, because setting and closing is so easy once you have a predictable and scalable acquisition process. Like, we just have closers come in, we ramp them up into KPI in the span of 7 days as a result of them just following our process. It's that simple. So I digress, you get the point. So we reach out to placement agencies, we spam them all, and like a bunch of people I know. I then ask for referrals. So I go through, I ask my current team, I ask in a bunch of school communities, I DM people, I email my email list with my referral template. Again, just selling the opportunity and offering anybody that brings me a referral and $1,000 referral bonus, okay? So if somebody stays with me for more than 30 days, they bring me a referral bonus. If you're thinking, oh, why would you pay $1,000 for a closer? Think about it this way. If my biggest constraint in my business right now is calendar availability, I just close one extra deal and I immediately make an ROI. So I need to act with a high level of urgency when hiring setters and closers, because I know that's a big constraint in the business, and chances are if you need setters and closers, you are the constraint in the process. You're in stage 2 of the agency, which means the highest leverage thing that you can do is hire setters and closers, okay? Then from there, arguably the most effective one is posting on your Instagram story and running ads to get setters and closers. So when it comes to posting on my Instagram story, very simple. I just post a following job post, like we're hiring setters and closers. Setters, here's the on-track earnings. Closers, here's the on-track earnings. If you haven't heard of that term OTE, it stands for, again, on-track earnings. The reason that's important is because with these being very commission-heavy roles, people want to know what the on-track earning is, okay? And then we have an application form we funnel them to. Every single channel that we reach out to people on goes to the same application form I'll show you in a minute. Then we also run ads to get setters and closers. Now, this is like the easier thing you can do. All you do is the targeting is 21 to 35, interest is sales, English only, do the locations relevant to the time zone you're in. So for us, we do UK, US, Canada because we're an international company. Ad placements, we do stories only. We spend $10 a day. We direct traffic again to the same application form, and it's literally that simple. So if you're wondering what kind of ads that we run, literally the exact same one that I just showed you that I put on my story. So an example of one for a high ticket sales rep would be the following. We need more remote high ticket sales reps, 10 to 18K offer. We run through our stats, 80% show rates, 37% close rates, 10K a month OTE, and then we just show some examples of payments. Another one is literally me just showing a calendar going, hey, we're fucking slammed. Please apply using the link below and we'll see you on the other side. It's literally that simple. And then all the traffic funnels to the exact same place, just goes exactly to the same application form. We're hiring closers and setters. You can see this here, it's very simple. I literally have a 3-minute video of a Miro board showing we're growing really fast. Here's the reason we're bringing people on. Here's the offers that we have. Here's the price points. Here's the show rate. Here's the close rate. Here's your on-track earnings. Here's what we're looking for. Here's not what we're looking for. And then I go, just hit the application button below, and then they fill out their information. Honestly, none of this is really that relevant. The most important thing is this: create your intro video below to create your Loom video. So what we do is we have them submit a Loom video. So when somebody applies, the only thing that we look at is we look at the Loom video. If the Loom video is decent, we then push them to a group interview where we'll group interview like 10 to 20 people at once. Then we move them to a one-to-one if we're more than like 60, 70% on them. And then from there, we make the hire, okay? So that's pretty much the entire process of generating the leads, getting the applications, and getting them on a group interview. Now, if you're wondering how we organize all the applications at scale, it's very simple. So we just have a VA that's responsible for managing the Slack. Obviously, some of this will be blurred for obvious reasons, but basically all the applications come in. The only things that really pull in are, name, email, phone, and then the Loom video link. All our VA does is go through. If they're more than 50% okay with what the closer looks like, how they present themselves, how they sound on the call, or how they sound in the Loom video, they will invite them to a group interview, which I've got one in like an hour and 15 minutes, where I can just spam a bunch of questions to everyone, see who's good, see who's bad, and then from there I can move them to a one-to-one interview, okay? So that's pretty much everything on hiring. Again, if you want more information on like the group interview framework, example group interviews, these are all things that we cover inside of a License and Scale. If you want more information about that, it's basically our agency program that helps people get to 6 and multi-six figures a month. You can just check below this video, there's a bunch of information there. But needless to say, once you've hired this person, then what do you do, okay? So this is our ramp up onboarding process. So day 0, first thing is we send out an offer email and a contract. Very self-explanatory stuff. Like you can just use Manus, ChatGPT, your LLM of choice to put together that contract. Then what we do is we go through and complete a series of onboarding steps. Now, those onboarding steps are very simplistic. It's literally just a case of us going in, making sure they're in Slack, making sure they're in all the relevant channels. So if I just give you some examples here, you can see we send them the contract template, we add them to our P&L sheet so we can keep log of everybody on our team. We also create their company email, make sure they've got access to it, and then we invite them to all the relevant Slack channels. If you're not familiar with Slack, it's basically a communication platform which you are going to need at scale inevitably once you get more than like 3, 4, 5 team members. So we segment our channels into like main folders of like announcements, wins, better every day, and then just like department mains of like sales general, announcements, call audits, tech and sales, end of days, and then all the notification channels, okay, which there is a copy there. From there, we just send them a welcome email like so, or a welcome text in Slack, and we send them our new team member onboarding document. This one's very key. Basically goes over core values, explains to them our email and how to get set up on it, shows them how to configure their profile picture, how we use Slack effectively, Google Drive, school, meetings and scheduling, a daily pulse check that we have, and then as well, we get them to subscribe to our universal team calendars as well. So just basic onboarding stuff is going on here, from getting them in Fathom, Zoom, Go High Level. And again, with Go High Level, key is we do not want to give them full admin access just to reduce the probability of us getting fucked. We make sure that they only have member access. And then around 7 to 14 days after that, depending on how quickly they get up to speed, we will then begin to add them to the closer calendar. Okay, so day one, we then have an onboarding call. So on that onboarding call, that's where we do 4 key things. We set expectations. We make sure they're aligned with what success looks like. So for us, that's like, okay, we need you to be doing a minimum of 20 units a month, 30% close rate, 40% upfront cash, whatever those measurements of success are for you on your offer specifically. We go over personal and professional goals, tech check, so we make sure they're in everything. And then we book the assessment call for day 3 to 4. In the meantime, this is where we introduce what we call our closer bootcamp. Now, a bootcamp is a compilation of SOPs and training material that someone can go through that saves me the time having to re-explain myself on the same bullshit things every single person asks, such as, oh, well, what's the sales process? How do I follow it? Is there any example calls? How do I manage the pipeline? What's an end of day report? How do I fill out my commission tracker? How do I fill out my closer tracker? You get the point. So all we've done is we've got an internal SOP bootcamp that sales reps go through to allow me to free up my time so they can just go through this and it will give them all the answers to what they need to know, okay? So if I just pull up, we've got 2 different ones because we've got two different companies. If I pull up our one for Pinpoint as an example, the minute we ramp up a sales rep, we have that onboarding call and they immediately come into here, okay? Where they have a compilation of videos. Now, to be clear, when they first come in, I just want them to go through the fundamentals, admin, and the sales crash course. So that will start with like industry knowledge, product knowledge. It will also go through the nuts and bolts of our sales process from intro to demo to how we manage the CRM and everything like that, just to make sure they're fully up to speed, okay? From that point, we give them a few days to go through that, take notes, and then we have an assessment call. This is where we make sure that they're fully aligned and they understand everything that I covered in the videos. So we go through and ask them a number of questions on like, how do we communicate? What are the main stages of our sales process? What is the difference between a qualified and unqualified prospect? Now here, we will then go in and conduct a role play of the intro process. To be clear, what we do with closers first is we actually have them in setting mode for the first 3 or 4 days after this period to get them fully congruent with the lingo in the industry, how to call them, how to convert them, how to get them on a demo, all of that stuff before we throw them in the fire on demos, okay? And then from there, again, if we're like more than a 6 out of 10 and they pass the assessment call, that's where we just move them to start taking setting calls. It's very simple. From there, for 3 days or so, they're going to start taking the setting calls, so taking intro calls, doing outbound in the pipeline. This is all subjective on if you run a 1-call or a 2-call process. 2-call, get them on the intro calendar. People will be booking in from your ads if you're running ads to acquire clients. If you run a 1-call, they'll just be doing outbound in the pipeline all day, okay? Then overview is day 7 to 14. They start taking demos and consistent call audits. Ideally, our rule of thumb is we want them to be fully at KPI by day 30. But day 7 to 14, we know like the first 10, 20 calls they take are going to be complete throwaway calls. So if I just show you this in text format as well, this is our call progression benchmarks from whenever we hire a closer. So first 10 calls, we classify as throwaway calls. To be clear, I've had closers come in, like we just ramped up a closer who closed like 6 clients in the last 6 days. With like a 70% upfront cash. He's had like 8 calls, 6 of which have closed, okay? But I've also got really good closers on my team that didn't close their first like 20, 30 calls, but I saw the potential. I looked at the quantitative or the qualitative measurements of success, meaning were they showing up on time? Were they being present? Were they actively improving? Were they asking a lot of questions? Of which they was. I was patient with them, and as a result of that, even though it was a bit later, like 20, 30, 40 calls went by, they started performing within KPI at that time, okay? So rule of thumb here as well is when you ramp them up to start taking demos, don't give them all the demos immediately, because then you're leaving all of the new cash flow coming into the business on someone else's shoulders that is brand new. Like what I always do whenever we bring a closer on is, say I've got a full calendar, I'll bring the closer on as like low priority initially. So they're gonna take, 1 or 2 demos a day. Then I'll slowly ramp them up. So week 1, 1 or 2 demos a day, week 2, 3 or 4, week 3, okay, now have the full calendar. Now that I know that you're starting to perform well, you're following the process, close rate is pretty consistent. So for example, if I do the math on this, let's say by like 20 to 30 calls in, you want them to be at 80% at KPI. All you need to do is the math on that. So like, let's say your KPI is 30% close rate. You just do 80% of that. So it would just be 30 times by 0.8, 24. So they need to be at a 24% close rate by 20 to 30 calls in at minimum. Okay, excuse my spelling, you get the point. And that's really pretty much everything on how we ramp up closers. From there, it's just consistent call orders, as long as they're operating within KPI by day 30. And again, if you want access to the full onboarding process, you want access to my internal SOPs that you can just license and use to ramp up your setters and closers into KPI, I know something to sell you, check out the comments section, and that's pretty much everything.